Mind-Body Solutions offers no-cost online adaptive yoga classes, live events, and a gathering space for people around the world who live with a disability. Why? We want to help people discover new ways to live more fully in the body they have. Mind-Body Solutions serves people of all ages who live with a wide variety of disabilities, including multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy, spina bifida, spinal cord injury, chronic pain, stroke, traumatic brain injury, age-related disease, traumatic stress, and intellectual disability, and so many more. By practicing yoga, we explore sensations of grounding, rhythm, balance, and expansion. Yoga helps us live better, where we are, how we are. Our students say that practicing yoga helps them in many different ways, like finding increased strength and flexibility and a greater connection to their whole body. Oftentimes, students find decreases in pain levels and improvements and ease in transfers. But there's also the community aspect that's forged in our online space. MBS Online is a gathering space for people living with a disability where they can come together and simply be among friends living with similar experiences. It's in this space where we all find connection, support, insight, and hope. We call it humanity disguised as yoga. Come find us.
Hey everyone, welcome to Kiss My Asana 2023. It's the 10th year of our Yogathon, which is hard to believe. We started on a tennis court serving food. We were so nervous to do it that we thought we better feed everyone a whole bunch of food so they'd stay around. Taught a great big all humanities yoga class on tennis courts. Which is hard to believe. We started in a. So is that anyone getting that background? I'm hearing myself speak. So nervous to do it that we. I'm going to pause because I have such important things to say. Stay around. Taught a great big all humanities on tennis courts. So we're holding up a second, nothing like stumbling out of the gate. Or is it anyone getting that background? I'm hearing myself speak. I'm going to pause because I have such important things to say. I'm going to smile really nice as we wait for our technical difficulties to resolve. We're holding up. Are we okay again? Somebody? I think it sounds okay. I'm not hearing myself. All right, I'm going to go as if it's working. So that's called a hiccup in the business. And it's all going to work out. All right. So again, welcome to this is a worldwide event. It'll be watched on video hundreds of times, if not thousands of times. So we're going to try to do a great job. Like I said, we started 10 years ago on a tennis court. We thought we had to serve food. It's moved to an event center next to a brewery one time where everyone that was in it went and drank after. I mean, it's like one of these things. And then we went online and that was weird, like it was for all of us. So this has had many, many metamorphoses and it's the 10th year. And we're so glad that you're joining us. This morning, I was practicing and I try to remember before an event like this, back to the roots of why Mind-Body Solutions is. And I was practicing, people that know the pose, legs wide, Upavista Konasana, and I'm sitting there lifting my chest and trying to get bigger inside my whole body because that's what this is and what we're on about. And I was practicing thinking, at the heart of mind body solutions, it's incredibly simple, right? Is that all of a sudden, years ago, I was practicing and thought, man, as someone that lives with a disability, who's paralyzed from the chest down, it's a radical act to believe that I can live in my whole body. Right? That in fact, despite the fact that I can't move like the rest of the world or do things like the rest of the world, that in fact, it's a radical act for me to pursue a lifetime of embodiment given my physical situation, and some would say my mental situation. So from that simple insight of embodiment, of thinking that when you live with a disability, it's your right to explore how to inhabit your body. From that incredibly simple beginning, blink, it's 21 years later, and we're here now. And it's so important to remember that the insight of being in your body is at the core of what we do. But it's such an intense act when you live with all types of trauma, loss, and disability, that it takes company, that it takes support, that it takes someone trying to run out and go, hey, there's ways to do this, even if it doesn't look like everyone else. And that's what Mind Body Solutions is. This year in 2023, we've moved completely online, which is also a big radical act for us. And it's allowed for a whole bunch of things, some of which you're going to see today. We're a worldwide community, even more now. We have we are having new people come in. Some of the people you're going to hear from today just found us online, right? Some of these people we haven't met in person yet. All these things, and yet what's happening is a emerging in 2023 of a new, more vibrant community within MBS. One of the things you're also going to see in 2023 is we're sharing videos and audio content of the MBS approach to adaptive yoga, and it's going to start appearing all year online. And it's because we want it 24/7 on demand for everybody, right? Because we want to open what we've pioneered, and that's what we're doing for everybody. But what we're really doing, in my opinion, in 2023 is we've refocused again on the heart and soul of MBS, which is this simple act of embodiment, right? And the transformation that happens when you do that. And so we're focusing on our adaptive yoga classes online, on original content, but more than that, creating a new community that supports the experience of disability in a way that isn't just like, okay, one thing I'll tell you a little secret when you live with a disability. We don't need a whole bunch of cheerleaders, right? We don't need everyone going, oh, that's so great what you're doing, right? The truth is there's a whole bunch of wisdom to disability. As my friend Kevin Kling says, disability is ability that's traveled through the world of shadow and reflection. Part of what we're building is a community that supports the experience of disability from inside to out. So a true companionship happens, and we want as this community continues to build online worldwide, we want people to understand that it's not that there's wisdom to the experience of living with chronic conditions, trauma, loss, and disability, and that the story needs to be told increasingly better from the perspective of disability. The line that I've taken on from Kevin Kling is that until the lion tells its story, the hunter is always the hero. And I don't like the hunter lion metaphor, but I do think that one of the things we're building is a network of support and companionship in an experience that our whole culture needs, right? It's not just people with disability, because by the way, everybody's disabled, everyone's becoming disabled. This is the truth of human experience. we're all aging. And so what's coming out of Mind Body Solutions in 2023 is something that we want to not just support the experience of disability for people living with disability, we want to share the wisdom more broadly than that. So today is a fundraiser. Yay, we've made like 60% of our goal, right? But we want you to donate today. We want you to like see what you're hearing. And we want you to click on. So there's going to be a QR code that comes on the bottom of the screen. You can use your phone. I was supposed to say, well, if you can't stay with us a whole hour, well, by the way, if you leave us in this hour, you snooze, you lose, right? But if you can't, you could just donate right away. We're not going to get mad at you for that. Or you could watch it on video after the fact. But what you're going to hear today, so there's multiple ways to give throughout, but what you're going to hear today is the Lions part of the story. We're going to go to the unseen impact of Mind Body Solutions, because all the people that live with trauma, loss, and disability know that there's the way that the culture views the experience, and then there's what it's actually like. And there's a disconnect between the stories that the lion is usually telling outwardly. And we're going to try to get to some of the unseen impact of adaptive yoga and Mind Body Solutions approach. And I can tell you from inside to out, there's nothing like being seen and having company, right? And I'm looking at our culture outwardly, and I don't think it's just people with disability that actually need that. I think that we're building a community for everyone ultimately, based on shared vulnerability, but more than vulnerability, based on incredible resilience and strength, right? And that's the wisdom of disability, and that's wisdom everybody needs. So without further ado, we're gonna start going through a series of 3 short interviews, which is gonna be hard because there's so much freaking content from each of these people. So my job is to try to keep it short, and you can already tell I'm a little bit verbose. It's okay. I'm gonna wanna say and uncover as much as we can. You know what? Because there's a hidden mystery about living in your body. There's a resource here. And it's not just because I can go leap over the moon. It's that there's resources that human beings are not getting. And you're going to see it in the stories today. The radical act of simple embodiment and how it's transformative. This is at the heart of what, and you're going to see it. And it's up to you to see all the wisdom in these stories, because I'm not going to be able to unpack it all. So I want to first introduce, and I'm lifting up here because I'm getting ready to spring in the conversation, right? Because my body's doing the interview, even though I'm on Zoom, right? I want to introduce Jane Gould. Jane Gould's going to come on with me now. And I want to tell you that, again, one of my true joys is figuring out, hey, Jane, thanks for joining us. And thanks for willing to share your story, or parts of your story, not your story. So Jane found us during the pandemic. You'll hear in her voice that wonderful accent. She's a transplant from England, and then to San Francisco, and then to Minnesota. Found us online from in Minnesota. Just so you know, from her English roots, this is something we haven't fully explored, that her dad was friends with Winston Churchill. Not even sure what that means, but it's very cool. These are fun facts, right? And Jane started, like I said, Jane, what was the year you actually started and found classes?
I started yoga in 2002.
But I mean with MBS.
Oh, I'm sorry. With MBS, it was last year.
Yeah, last year. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're going to get into the 2002 timeline, right?
Okay, yeah.
So in 2002, Jane was training to be she was a former sprinter, training to be, now this is, I just love this knowing her now, and this makes me crack up, a Chinese mixed martial arts kickboxer, right? She ended up like getting the diagnosis in 2001 or 2002 of MS, correct? Multiple sclerosis. At that point, on the influence of a Tibetan doctor, said, hey, you need to get less yang, male energy, you need more yin energy. And at that moment, Jane, being who she is, switches to practice yoga and also study Reiki. And she ends up becoming a Reiki master, doing a free clinic outside of San Francisco for people to do Reiki on them. So this is someone that all of a sudden gets a diagnosis, switches gears from kickboxing to yoga and Reiki, right? So again, trying to give you a little indication who she is. And then she decides or believes that if she just lives the way you're supposed to as a human being, that maybe if she does everything just right, maybe MS won't find her. So that was how, talk a little bit about that, right? Like that.
Well, you
like,
you nailed it, Matt.
What were the things you were doing though? Yogi, Reiki, but what else?
I was doing yoga, I was doing Reiki, I was doing an Ayurvedic Tibetan diet, so which I still do actually, which was like no wheat, no gluten, no sugar, all natural, everything. I was doing walking meditation. I was going on retreats. I was doing affirmations. So I had post-it notes all over my house. I was journaling. I was meditating at least once or twice a day. I think
the point is you ain't no joke. You took it seriously.
Yeah, very serious.
Was gonna right living was gonna protect her from MS. And if you know anything about chronic diseases and stuff, guess what? They find you anyway. There isn't one thing you can do to make sure that they don't have their effects, right? And that's just the truth. We like to believe, human beings like to believe they're in more control of stuff. They're not. Things happen, right? And so talk a little bit about when MS started to find you. Didn't you have a transformation where you started using a wheelchair like 4 years ago or something?
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that space.
Okay. So, so gradually over the period of 15 years, I kind of progressed in small parts. And then about 7 years ago, I was really starting to use a cane, and then crutches, and then a scooter. But a couple of years ago, actually, once I had moved to Minnesota, my body had become really spastic. So it was like my body had become like a soldier on parade kind of, and I couldn't move from one position to another. And it was extremely painful all the time. The only time I ever felt any inch of relief was if I woke up right in the middle of the night for about 2 seconds. So I had a medical pump implanted to release medicine to relax my body. But what happened was when I left the hospital with the new pump, my body had relaxed, but I had lost. I didn't have any connection with my legs anymore, so I was paraplegic.
So she had a transformation from identifying yourself as having a chronic condition to more of an overt disability.
Yeah.
And then talk a little bit about the idea that maybe the downturn you had, at least psychologically, realizing that no matter what you did, right, that it became kind of a prison, right?
So, yeah, that was a real, I blamed myself for it because I thought I'd done everything I possibly could do. And the fact that I was in a wheelchair anyway meant that everything I'd done was wrong. And I took it the next level and decided that therefore I must be innately a bad person or live in a dark place of it sounds really dramatic, but that I was basically some kind of evil person deep inside me, that only I knew how evil I was in order for the disease to have kind of beaten me.
Yeah, and that's part of, like, in a way, you adopted a framework, whether it be influenced by other healers or teachers, right? That somehow the crap message to people with chronic conditions and disability that you're in control. I've been told that I chose to be in a car accident, right? That I chose this lifetime from this kind of new age awareness. Like, I chose this lifetime because I had things to work out. So this like you get these messages all the time that are bizarre. So you fast forward, she's I can tell you, everybody, that she's quite a yoga teacher. Her awareness of yoga as she's been my student has been amazing to me, right? But you've come to the conclusion that yoga is no longer accessible to you as your body's changed so much.
Yeah, so
But,
sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
All I was going to say was, as my condition progressed, I tried to do yoga and I tried to keep going with yoga, and I couldn't do it anymore because I was trying to do the poses that I knew, and I just couldn't do it. And I just became really frustrated with it and gave up and quit.
And it's because the conception of yoga, and I'll just, from outside to in, doesn't work when you live with a chronic condition or when you live with a disability. And so you find our classes online, and what did you find in our community? Not only a different way of doing yoga that was more accessible, but speak some other things that you found in the MBS community.
Well, when I was first at home in Minnesota and I was using my wheelchair, I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any friends here. I couldn't drive. I couldn't walk. I actually couldn't leave my house because there were stairs and stuff. And with the MBS community, I found a community. I found people. First of all, it gave me a structure. So I had fallen into quite a big depression, and getting out of bed was difficult for me. And knowing that there were classes every morning, and that I made connections with people on those classes, and that they would notice if I was there or if I wasn't there, it actually started me wanting to get out of bed and show up, because I didn't want so-and-so wondering where I was. And I wanted to see how so-and-so was because they had said something in the previous class and I wanted to check in on them. And so it just kind of snowballed in the most amazing way from there. And then I found my tribe, or I found my people. And now I feel like I belong, and I just feel happy. And
then also,
yeah.
I mean, we all, as teachers, you get to be happy and see the things. I remember one class in particular, we don't need to talk about this now, where Jane hadn't been able to do inversions, headstand or shoulder stand, for a long time. And I taught a class of inversions and from a seated position. And I remember seeing Jane's face about, oh my God, I can still access the energy of inversions while having MS in a wheelchair. And that was one of the reasons why I do what I do. So one of the things that happens in MBS is this reciprocal thing that occurs. And so, I mean, in a way, I don't want to sound too barfy, but that was one of the moments that keep me going. And I know MBS teachers have those moments all the time. So Jane, in closing, talk a little bit about one of the unseen places where the MBS community, besides, helping you have more structure in your life. I know that you have to take a rest every afternoon, and something occurs like a third of the time, right? Talk a little bit about this unseen place that MBS finds you.
Yes. So as Matt just said, I have to nap every afternoon, and I have difficulty still getting my legs onto the bed or off the bed because of residing spasticity that didn't go away. So I do fall, yeah, probably like 3 out of 10 times. I have a wonderful neighbor who will come and get me, or my partner will come and get me from work. But what happens is, when I first would fall, I'd go into panic mode, freak out, be in tears, and go into that very dark place of my life isn't worth living and everything. But now, when I fall, and when I've fallen recently, I'm able to find that quiet place that I've learned from being with everyone at MBS. And I'm able not only to go into that quiet place and be calm, but I'm able to kind of channel or draw all of my MBS folks, their energy and their support. And I know that they've been through stuff as well. And it gives me comfort. And I know that I can hang on and just be more peaceful until help arrives. And that is life-changing.
Like 20 to 30 minutes, right? Often fallen in an uncomfortable, painful position.
Yeah. And 20, it's often 30 or sometimes even longer minutes of being crumpled up on the floor with my legs, because I can't control them and I can't move them. One will be scrunched one way on top of another one, and my head's kind of underneath the bed, and it's
one of
pretty.
the things, but it's also incredible resilience. And I wanted you, thanks for describing those details, because it's easy to hear that and stop as the MBS community or people watching this and going, boy, her life's really hard, and to put it on, well, how amazing Jane is, right? And that's only the beginning of the story. I say this to people watching, don't let that keep you asleep. What's amazing is this happens 1 out of every 3 days to Jane. She continues to show up and give and share in the community. And it's not just, oh, Jane's so amazing. It's that there are places of resilience within human being, not just within Jane, that can even travel through those spaces. And that's what we're trying to get across. So Jane, thanks so much for joining our community, that we know how to support and transform the hidden experience of disability, which is falling and those moments that are hard because they inform the other moments. So Jane, thanks so much for sharing your story. And again, these hidden impacts of MBS are what we're all about. I want to switch to Dennis. So Dennis, unmute yourself. So Dennis also found us online, right? And in 2020, he is a former, I still think of him as current osteopathic physician, which means, So I'm thinking, Dennis, that I just want to say quickly that means he's trained in principle in a more holistic approach to healing and health, right? So
yes, that's right. Sure.
Yeah. And he is like an MD, but also has this other view of healing, right? Too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So Dennis, to quickly get you up to date, Dennis in 2004 was sitting at a stop light or stop sign and got hit by a cement truck, rear-ended by a cement truck. I laugh because it's so horrific. I mean, it's amazing that he's here. He ends up not having just a bruise on his shoulder, but ends up not having any overt symptoms, but sustained a traumatic brain injury that actually didn't get diagnosed for 2 weeks. It took his partner Dennis and his sister to realize marked changes in his personality to figure out that he had a traumatic brain injury, right? Which is one of those things, like, things have changed. They're better at diagnosing that. His traumatic brain injury affects his balance, his executive function, And he tells me it affects his ability to retrieve words, which is something that I have not found when he asks these amazing questions after class, right? So we have these discussions after class. I'm like, holy cow. So I don't know if I see that, right? But I believe him. So he finds us in 2020, and he'd heard throughout, like, so 16 years into his injury, but a whole bunch of healthcare professionals kept telling, hey, you should try this adaptive yoga thing. And there's, Matthew Sanford, blah, 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 and Mind Body Solutions, blah, blah, blah. But it took he and his partner, John, had a roommate who was, I think, a PT that we had trained, but knew of us. And it took her having him take a class with them on their deck, in order to try yoga, and then he's been with us ever since. So when you first heard the idea of adaptive yoga and mind body solutions, tell me, like, were you thinking it was a good idea? Like, because I know you had tried yoga before that, but what was your initial ideas about you being able to do yoga?
Well, my initial impressions of yoga was fitness yoga, that it was framed within a framework of that you could stress your body enough to build muscle stamina, and as I learned later on, of going into the violent zone, so to speak, and making everything hurt. Well, I ruptured 2 discs in my back, went back to that style of yoga, and it really hurt me to the point I couldn't walk. So anyway, so while our house was selling, we lived with our paraplegic friend, which was wonderful, a wonderful thing to do. And she said, well, come out on the deck this morning and we'll sit in the sun, and we're going to do adaptive yoga with Matt Sanford this morning. So get your chair and we'll sit in the sun. And the hummingbirds came, and she said, well, I'll get you the book after class.
That's awesome.
And
so
that's how I got started.
Yeah. But it also, you had recommended to you by another PT.
My brain injury therapist. Yeah, my speech pathologist.
Neuropsychologist, right?
Right. My pool therapist, my physical therapist.
So what I want to get there is that's part of the MBS mission working, is that we've interacted and trained enough healthcare professionals, enough yoga teachers, and enough students that someone like Dennis, thank goodness, then has his roommate to get him to actually try it. And of course, we sent in the hummingbirds to make him think it was magical. But
she will love that.
Working. That's our whole mission working, is that it's coming from multiple directions. So in this violent zone of recognizing that he was trying, because Dennis, wasn't it also the case that when you did adaptive yoga, that you didn't feel like you were doing anything and weren't entering the violent zone? It didn't hurt, but you were surprised, right?
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Because how could something pain-free and not stressful actually do something to your body? And I found out that yes, it does. Because I would feel that I had worked out the next day, not in a bad way, but I would feel that I actually had done something, despite the fact that it wasn't painful at the time.
Yeah, and that's part of the hidden thing about, and in the practice we're going to share all together in a little bit, is that in the MBS approach, we can make you work really hard without taking your leg behind your head. Like, it's a systemic core energetic thing.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah. And that's part of what it is to be able to teach asana, yoga poses, from inside to out. Asana that gets more to the root of what is happening in a yoga pose, and teach it to everybody. And that's what we've been spending all these years trying to figure out. So Dennis, what actually keeps you coming back to the MBS classes and stuff? Like, what do you find within MBS? A workout, a surprising workout, but
Well, I absolutely love everybody who comes to class. As you know, I mentioned our friend Michael. Learned to know a physically challenged young beef cattleman from Bemidji, and you know, started showing up for class 5 or 10 minutes early, because that's when we would all chat, and then we stay afterwards and chat with you. But it was the community part first, but it does give me a chance to recharge, refresh, frame my brain injury in a new way. It's not the brain I want, but it's the brain I've got. And so this is one of the tools that I have to keep me going with a different brain.
Yeah,
and that's a good thing.
One of the things you told me about when we were talking was a class. You know, if you can't tell, Dennis is quite a deep thinker too, right? He's exploring different kinds of health. But there was a class that we had talked about where it was snowing again, and this has been a really long winter for all of us.
I love that one.
Yeah, I was talking about the crispness of the winter and the shadows and the light against the snow, and kind of talk about a little bit about what that allowed you to remember or get.
That was an analogy that my sister and I often shared together.
Who was no longer with us, right?
She just died last June.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but we would talk about how the air would hit our face when we went out in that environment, and how the sky is so blue and the sun is shining and the shadows are crisp on the snow, and that was a good thing, that was something joyful in winter. And we would laugh at each other and just say, oh, it's so fresh. It's so fresh outside. And here you came into class a month or two ago with that same analogy. And so I was visited by my sister on that morning from wherever. And I just really identified with it, that it's a beautiful thing. I love the white snow and crisp shadows on it. And I guess I don't care whether it's April or May or February or January. It still has beauty and meaning.
And that's part of what I want to close with, is that when you embody, and one of the things I would say that reminded you of, by the way, I get credit for conjuring your sister, and I had no idea, which I'm happy about that in general, to call all angels, right? But is that when you embody and you inhabit your senses, you remember beauty, you remember things that sustain us. And so this process of embodiment just isn't even being able to take your arms over your head better or do a yoga pose. The process of embodiment makes life crisper and more alive. And that's something that's easy to lose track of when you live with a disability. And so you know, being who you are, Dennis, you picked it up and get it into a whole story. I want to close with bringing in John. So here we get to here's John here. That is Dennis's partner. John, I'm just curious, why don't you make a couple comments about what it is, the transformation you see in Dennis? Because here's part of the hidden the unseen impact of it. So what do you see in Dennis after he's taken a class or after a day or whatever? Like, how do you see it?
I like that you say unseen impact, because, you know, with a traumatic brain injury, that really is what it is, especially with Dennis, because he has no other manifestation of his injury. And I'm glad you talked about the winter conversation, or the imagery that you had, you can see how important that was to him and what it means to him. And I guess I would just say that that's what I see when he attends the sessions with you, that he'll go into it in whatever mood or whatever is happening to him, because, you know, living with this disability has challenges and mood swings and all of that goes with it. But he'll come in, he looks so forward to the sessions, because he truly, just so everybody here that's online with us knows, he truly loves all of you. And, you know, we'll be out at dinner and he'll start talking about one of you by name. And, you know, I'm sorry, I don't go to class and I don't know your names. And he'll talk about you as though I know who you are. And he knows everything you're doing, and he's so excited about things that are happening in your lives. So anyway, I'm glad to know about them. It's just I don't always know right away what's going on when he does that.
Right. Yeah, and you say his memory seems fresher and more alive and more engaged and all that stuff. Right?
Well, and you know, you mentioned the community, so it truly is a community that is unique, that is nowhere else in his life. And in any community that, you know, we have, I don't think it's as meaningful. This is a very meaningful community to him. It's very amazing. But anyway, when he does these sessions, you know, he not only has, as he said, a significant physical workout that he maybe notices the next day because it's very calm as he does them. He's always kind of amazed. But well, Matt, you wouldn't have any way to know this, but I'll tell you that I think every time, maybe not every time, but probably every time, he ends a session by closing the computer and he'll say, "He's so good," about you.
Yeah.
So, but he really means that. He just enjoys these sessions so much. They mean a lot to him. And he leaves the sessions, I think, you know, like we were talking about, the way that he walks into a burst of, you know, Arctic air in the winter, and he says, "Oh, it's so fresh." I think that's the way he feels when he comes out of the meetings. He just feels fresh. You know?
And Dennis, like, I mean, John, how does it make, I mean, does it fill you up too to know he's getting that access? That's part of what I also want to get to is
well, yes, of course, because, you know, I don't have a traumatic brain injury, but I live with one every day, you know. I can't imagine, and I never will know what it's like to live with a brain injury of one's own. But I get glimpses of it every once in a while that just astonish me, frankly. And it pulls me back in to realize how much of a struggle is going on beneath the surface that I really don't see day to day, which is a good thing, but it's, and I guess it's a good thing I don't really realize that too.
Yeah, for sure.
But I do see glimpses of it from time to time. And I realize that it's really remarkable that he has something that can help him find a balance and be calm and feel refreshed and have such a much better outlook, you know, every week. And it's just here in our house. So we're really glad you're there doing what you do. And
to know that a community can meet him in that place that he doesn't get to fully communicate to anyone in his life.
The community aspect is very, very real.
All right, Dennis. I mean, John, I really appreciate both you and Dennis, and it's, you know, you're welcome to take the class with us anytime.
You know, I think I will.
Back the camera up and just do it all. We'll do it all together, because I want to go switch to the next person, Angelique Lele, who one of my favorites is, I hate to say it, I really adore Angelique, but one of my favorite students as of late is her dad, who is in his mid 80s, right? Sits in the background, and he's a former orthopedic surgeon. And he sits in the background and listens to my talk and my teachings. I hate to say it, I'm often teaching the person over your shoulder rather than just you. So Angelique, welcome to to tell a little bit about your story. So in 2012, I get this call from a chaplain who we've trained in our healthcare trainings. I'm pretty sure, if I remember this right. And she goes, "Oh, I've got there's a yoga teacher here. She's been injured. She fell off a trapeze, broke her back. You got to talk to her." And I typically don't. I mean, that's the thing for me. It's a little bit. I get a lot of these personal appeals, and it's too hard on me a little bit to get involved all the time when I'm asked to. But then I get a call from a yoga colleague in Detroit who I've taught at his conferences and stuff, Johnny Kest, and says, "Oh my God, I got a student, and this happened, and could you please reach out to her?" And I'm thinking, oh, and even that I'm not willing to do exactly, because again, I have to protect my heart a little bit. And then for whatever reason, I actually reach out to Angelique, and it's like, isn't it right after? I mean, you're like a week into your injury, right?
Then I gotcha.
Yeah. So talk a little bit from your perspective, how it came up to find this. You had a couple of things pre-surgery and different things. Talk a little bit about that.
I was lying, waiting for my surgery. So I was just in my narcotic haze, but I was just thinking about like what my life was going to be like afterwards. And the one thing I didn't want to let go of was yoga. And the only thing I could remember was your picture on the inside cover of Waking. I didn't remember the book, but I just remember seeing you during teacher training at Johnny's in Johnny's studio, and he talked about you, and I don't even remember what he said, and I remembered your first name. So that the chaplain came and mentioned you to me was like one of those moments where I'm like, you can read my mind, oh my God, what happened?
It's so awesome.
Crying.
So then so it turns out that Angelique starts to go through it, and there's a documentary made about our work, by the way. It's available on our website if you look at on our homepage on the very top. It's called Standing Still, Still Standing, by an award-winning filmmaker from New York, Andrew Walton. And Angelique is one of the 3 stories told in that, and she kind of steals the whole frickin' show, in my opinion. She's always embarrassed when I say that, but she makes it so real. And she's early on. It's, they even have footage of her leaving Courage Center, the rehabilitation center. So so watch that. There's a link to it on Vimeo if you want to watch it. It's 40 minutes. The guy made a really good film, and Angelique is a great star in it, actually. But near the end of the video, Angelique, the end of the film, it's kind of the outtakes, and you're beginning to get some neurological return a little bit because you broke your back very low. Like what's a level like
L2, and then
so right above the tailbone, basically, higher. So you're paraplegic. And she was getting some physical return, so that the parting shot of the film is you moving a little bit, and Andrew asking you on film, like, what is that? And he goes, I know. And you're excited, right? But flash forward, that's like within 6 months or a year after your injury. And then I see you at the opening of that film in the Twin Cities. And I see you, and things have changed, and you're in a lot of neurogenic pain and a whole bunch of things. So talk a little bit about that being an end of a certain healing vision for you and the beginning of another.
Yeah, I think I was riding on a little bit of, I don't know if it's not adrenaline, but it's just like, I can do this. I've always had a lot of hope. I still have a lot of hope. The doctors tell you that the pain might dissipate. And then you always feel like I might get more back. I might be able to walk. I listened to anybody who said that they started walking again. I was like, really? How'd you do it? What, you know? And then I tried to do a little bit of what they did. It didn't matter where their injury level was. So when that stuff started not happening, and then my pain started getting worse, I think it just started wearing me down. And when you saw me, I was in one of those places where I was like, this isn't getting any better. Like I was coming to a place of acceptance begrudgingly around where I was at. And that's, you know, as we all know, not an easy place to come to.
So there's an analogy, kind of strange analogy, between what Jane was doing when she realized that MS was going to find her anyway. That a certain vision of what healing and recovery is plays its course, runs its course, and then there's also the other part of the truth where things just happen and change. And so one of the things I wanted to have Angelique here on with us is because it pivots there. And just so you know, she and Rodrigo, who are going to be in the practice here soon, are share a class. They're now teachers for MBS and kind of like emerging rock stars in yoga teaching from inside to out with the experience of disability. And so that's part of like that switch. So you start coming and you start coming to my class. You start finding, because there's a moment in the film that's really important where I say to you, hey, you get to have your whole body again. Yeah. Right. And it's a really powerful moment in the film. But I know at the moment and at the time that you're still on this other hope. And yet what's going to happen is I know this from being around people with disability, there's going to be a transformation. It's not just acceptance, Angelique. It's finding the truth of who and what you are relative to your conceptions of healing, right? And I would say what I see in you is amazing since you picked up your yoga practice again. So in the transformation of becoming you, because you had been teaching traditional students even after your injury, but then we asked you to start teaching yoga for us. And Angelique appears on trainings with me and a whole bunch of stuff. So talk about why you are nervous about that.
Oh, I was afraid that I was going to hurt somebody. I think I was afraid of just taking on the challenge and what that meant for me. I'm not even sure of all the reasons. I didn't want to let you down.
Oh, for God's sakes, woman. Yeah, you can't let me down.
You know, like you, Amy, Bethany, Molly, like you were all people that I looked up to, and I was like, I just didn't want to let anybody down, and I wanted to be able to do it and feel okay about it, and then and more than okay about it. I mean, and I wanted to help people, you know, not hurt people.
Yeah, and not just hurt people. What I watched you go through in the last few years is because the film debuted in 2017, I think 2018. Is that you had a very powerful physical practice, which was beautiful, and you've had to undergo the transformation of realizing that at the core of even that beautiful practice was the thing you still have access to.
Right. I was afraid that I had to give up all of what I had, and I grieved that, you know, and I did have to give up some of it, and I had to find my powerful, beautiful practice in vinyasa practice again for myself. I think that was another part of it. You're right. Like I had to find that for myself, and then I could share that with students. I wasn't going to become a teacher that taught like more of an Iyengar based practice. There are elements of it that find their way into what I do, but because that's not my training. But I was able to bring all that I love into this new shape of, you know, what I've learned from you and what I can do and what feels good in my body now, which is different than what it used to be. And that's okay. You know, it wasn't okay 4 years ago, but it really is okay now.
Yeah, I remember a moment she'd come to teacher train. We got her to come to our teacher trains, then we're in person. And there's a moment where she's doing this thing next to a chair. And all of a sudden I turned to her and go, do you understand? Can you feel right now you're doing crow pose, which is an arm balance, and it's really intense and very physical. It's the kind of thing you do in a more physical practice. And I remember I didn't plan to have you there. All of a sudden I saw the pose, like I'm wheeling by going, holy crumbs, you're in crow pose right now. And I remember watching you realize, like Jane realizing she could still touch an inversion, like, oh my God, I am still doing the Korav, you know, and that was part of the meeting of your two practices.
Yeah.
Right. Say a little bit about, you know, the thing about healing is that you don't give up your past life.
Yeah.
You figure out a way to bring it forward.
Right. Yeah.
Say more about that.
I think I was trying so hard to like force my past life and trying to like jam it into this one. I mean, I did damage to myself, violence to myself. And instead of like just pulling, not even pulling, but like coaxing in the things that work and the things that feel right and the things that work for my body, and discovering, actually like taking the time to listen, which is what yoga is about, to listen to my body and discovering what is there now, you know, which is a very different thing.
Yeah, and it takes time. And one of the things that you and I talk about, and I say this, it's kind of a funny thing. It's like especially when you acquire a disability, it takes about 10 years to realize you're disabled, right? That like to actually how to bring coax the things forward, to integrate the things that can go forward. You know, like I wanted to force my past yoga practice into my future one. It's like, no, you have to figure out truthfully how they merge and the different doors that open in an adaptive practice,
Yeah.
right? And I wish that human beings would figure this out more. Our world's changing and we have to adapt and we have to figure out different ways to go forward with each other. So this isn't just about disability. This is about actually knowing that, you know, the thing about trauma is that Andrew has another film, the thing that happened is that, you know, about trauma is that you can't go back to how things were ever, no matter what the trauma is. It's whether you can go forward and be informed by what occurs. And this is what we're trying to do. So, Angelique, in closing, what was the thing that got you over this fear of teaching adaptive yoga? And she still says it, not hurting someone. It's not just that Angelique's not hurting people. She's actually changing people's lives. But she's not ready to say that yet. I'm okay with that. I'll be patient with what she's actually doing. But so what got you over that fear?
Well, you'd asked me a couple times to do it. And finally, I just thought, I'm just going to jump in. I just have to just jump in and trust that if you are asking me to do it, you know something about me that I don't. and that if you don't like what I do, you'll just fire me. So that's okay. I'll just do it and see what happens.
Yeah, well, no, you're not ever going to be fired, right? We don't fire people in our community. However, it is the case when it comes to embodiment and when you live with what you think in your mind, not just you, but anybody, that somehow your body's cut off from you. You know, you lose part of your soul when you do that. And that the only way to live in your body is to live in your body. The only way to like go into something new is to just do it. And that's what I realized when I started yoga, is that I'm going to try to figure out how to be in this body. So I'm just going to do it. Right. And that's part of what we want to pass on to everybody at Mind Body Solutions. That, hey, just shut up and get on the mat and do some stuff and let your life transform, because embodiment is magical. Right. All right, Angelique, we got to go to the practice now. I'm behind schedule like I always am. What the hell? I'm going to go a little bit over everyone's chagrin. It's okay. I'm teaching anyway. So Rodrigo, I want to welcome you back on. He lives halftime in Brazil, halftime in Sweden. He's about to leave Brazil back to Sweden. Right? So he's going to come on screen here, I'm hoping. There he is. He's going to practice. Rodrigo, like, we got to hear your voice because I love your freaking accent. But you also have found yoga. You live with a lot of chronic pain too, but have found, in one sentence, man, try to tell me what you found in practicing yoga. Not just with mind body issues. Rodrigo's on the board of directors of Accessible Yoga, a different movement too. He's out there. He's on Instagram. Follow him. He's doing some great stuff out there. Rodrigo, just
thanks for having me, Matt. Like Angelique, I found my NBS right after my accident. I fell from a cliff in 2014, broke my back, and I was very privileged to incorporate adaptive yoga into my rehabilitation process. And in one phrase, I would say that adaptive yoga, make me fall in love with my newly broken body, let's say that, and accept things how they are, and live more embody on myself, like more present, and with the things how they really are. So I love practicing yoga and love being here with you guys.
And helping others. He's teaching all over. Follow him on Instagram. He's got some beautiful images on there. I like the way you share your practice. He's an artist too, and it shows on his stuff. All right. So sit up straight and tall, everybody. The process of embodiment is simple. It starts so simple, it looks complex. Let yourself exhale and be here. Right? So there's a release on the exhalation. The earth must be transformed into your poses. It's about not forcing the earth into your poses, but it's about letting the earth and the support of what you cannot see directly and feel directly rise up in your poses. So the exhalation is a dropping, the inhalation is a spark, right? And you need them both. Yogic realization demands both the dropping and the spark. And you start to realize that, in fact, they're not separate. They're actually the same energy on different sides of the coin. So exhale and then inhale. Start the process of embodiment by in asana, by letting the quiet part, so soften your temples, the jaw, the inside of your mouth. There's resources in you that comes from the quiet. Right? And this is going to help people with disability practice yoga in a very deep way, is that they recognize that the loss and the quiet is part of the movement. And this is something that takes able-bodied people a long time to realize. It's not just about what they can do, it's about what they can receive while they're doing. So feel your sitting bones, extend from the inner groin down to the inner knee. Lift the chest up. As you go down, there's a natural rise. As soon as you go down, something rises in your spine. Follow it, lift your chest. Notice it makes you, when you lift your chest, you kind of want to inhale because your breath coordinates with your movement and your movement coordinates with your breath. So now add an extra variable, stretch your arms straight down, right? So you activate your will, but you do something that demands more awareness. Lift under the collarbones, spread the space between your shoulder blades, right? Roll the inner upper thigh in and down and extend down to the inner heel. Embody your experience, not just with your will. So I want you to feel this, feel the effort in your spine, feel your core channel, but keep feeling your skin too. So you're inside and outside simultaneously. Good. And then release. So one of the things that's important that you'll see, and you get 7 practices from me this week. One was centering. One is a sense of space and lightness. So if you're sitting in a chair, right, I want you to bounce a little bit. It's amazing how often people in wheelchairs forget to have a sense of lightness and play in their body. But isn't that a problem adults have too? Right? Adults get all caught up in the seriousness of their life and they forget to get on the floor. So then go off to the side a little bit too. So you're changing gravity, right? And make it slightly more rhythmic, forward and back. A sense of space and lightness. If you can maintain space and lightness in the effort of asana, yogis start to learn something really important. And then take your legs wide for a second. They can learn something really important. If you can maintain a sense of space and lightness while you're moving with your will and efforting stuff, right? You start to learn that your whole body breathes. So it's not just your lungs. So I'm just spreading my base here for a second. It's not just your lungs that breathe, but it's your whole body that breathes. And then back to center, right? So you always want to maintain this space and lightness because it makes your breath more effective, right? So with standing poses, you're trying to figure out how to change the gravity, trying to get more input to your brain. So what I want you to do is inhale and take your arms wide. So get bigger in space, right? So now watch what happens when you just drop your chest and that gets harder on your neck. Lift your chest and expand. So go from the center outward, down through your sitting bones, because you're going to be asked to be doing simultaneous things. Down through your sitting bones, extend from the inner groin to the inner knee. Feel the space underneath your arms. Feel the space between your ears and shoulder blades, your ears and tops of your shoulders. Breathe. Breathe as if you're in the whole space. Find your bones and your skin and breathe. Good. And then come on down. The problem with overcoming your body and just using your will to survive disability is that it narrows who you are. If you don't live through your body, you're not going to be able to be all that you can be. To use a bad line, right? All right, so now I want you to lean over to the left. And I want you to feel the difference when you drop your chest and the difference when you open your chest. And then take the arm up. So Amy's on screen with us, by the way. She's one of our core teachers. And then go the other way. So we're just like opening space, right? So I want you to notice the sensation of space difference when my arm's up. If I drop my chest, my relationship to gravity is heavier. If I open my chest as I stretch my arm up, now if I hit down through my sitting bone, so you just do this. You're gonna go the other way again. Drop your chest. The mind is the dumbest part of you. Like, so got to feel the contrast. Open your chest and open, right? So Amy's gonna do triangle pose, a standing version, right? We're gonna do a sitting version. So if there's a chair off to your side, you can leave a lean on your chair if you're in a chair. But I'm gonna lean over onto a table over here, or onto a chair over here, right? And so now what I want, one of the things that happens in a yoga pose is that you got to keep the back part of your body. So Amy, turn your 1 foot in, 1 foot out, right? And so you're going this way, right? So I just want to show you. What I want you to do is then take I'm leaning to the right here. I'm rolling my shoulder under. I'm putting awareness on my back hip here. And I'm pushing down on my hip as I raise my spine up, right? So I'm doing this and then release. And I'm going to add in, so the core of Trikonasana happens, right? The core of Trikonasana happens in this action, right? So I'm going down and going up. So Amy's going down over the whole pose, right? I'm rolling my shoulder blade under and I'm stretching up, right? And then I'm going to go the other way. This way, I'm not going to have the chair here. I'm going to lean over, push down with my back hip, right? So I get this launching sensation in my spine. But as I launch my spine this way, I'm hitting down through the back hip. And then I'm going up, right? Because if I inhabit my whole body, my poses get better, right? And then release. So now I'm going to add spreading my legs a little bit, right? So I'm going to take my legs wide. So we're doing a standing pose here, right? This time I'm going to lean over, right? So I'm leaned over like this. I'm getting my back hip. I'm taking the arm up, right? And so I'm going in multiple directions in the room through the core channel. Right? I'm opening the space between my shoulder blades and I'm breathing. Good, and then release. So we're gonna go the other way. Right? So I'm making sure when I get so willful, I gotta make sure I still have my bones. So I'm sitting here a little bit going like, oh yeah, I remember to be light, right? So I take my legs wide. I'm gonna go over this way, right? Making sure I get this launching feeling. And the launching feeling of lifting my chest and spine, I make sure I press down through the back hip and the back foot. So I'm coordinating. This is the core of the pose. This is the window dressing, right? And then up. So I'm making sure I'm going down. I'm going up. I'm broadening across my collarbones. I'm lengthening this way. And I'm breathing. Good, and then release. Come back to the midline. Always come back to the midline. Remember, we were spines first, right? We were spines first. We had brains second, right? So I'm coming forward here. So I want everyone to do downward facing dog. Amy, we do downward facing dog, but we're gonna do a version. So Angelique and Rodrigo, you can do it on your legs like this. I'm gonna come forward onto a table, right? But the thing that's important about this pose, so Rodrigo, put your wrists on your knees and open your palms. So your hands are like that more. Yep, there you go. Right, so broaden across your collarbones, space between your shoulder blades. It's really crucial in dog pose to learn how to connect your activated and elongated spine, right, with awareness in your limbs. So I want you to hit down through your sitting bones, lift your chest out, broaden across the collarbones, right? Work the undersides of your arms. Now extend, Rodrigo and Angelique, especially extend from the inner groin to the inner knee. Hit down and rise up. Now, if you want to look your gaze downward, more like Amy's got her gaze down, do that. Right? So stretch out through the top of your head, hit down through your sitting bones, and use the energy that comes from extending your spine to inform the work in your legs and arms. Breathe. Good, and then release. Come back up to the middle. All right, so now you're gonna lean over, right? Take your chest up. Now this time, you're gonna take your arm over your head. So you're bringing your arm back into the midline of your spine. You're rotating your chest up. You're hitting down through the back hip, all those other things, right? And you're opening and you're turning your spine towards the sky as you're lengthening the side flank. This is Parsvakonasana. So Amy, do Parsvakonasana. Yep. So side flank pose. And then you're going this way. You're going to go back the other way. So again, the difference between this is that you're submerging your upper arm back into your, so getting the same things, up, over. You're coming back into your own midline as the spine is forced to activate more skyward. And as you rotate this up, you hit down through the back leg. For Amy, it'd be the outer rim of the back heel. So again, you're in your midline. Come back to center. So I hope you're feeling, I'm like a little bit breathless here, partly because I'm talking, but I'm rocking again because rhythm needs to stay present in the experience of disability, right? It's not just grounding, it's not just effort, it's not just your breath, it's remembering that even when you live with traumatized disability, you can still be in rhythm. All right, so inhale, take your left arm, your right arm up. Exhale, bring it over. So now we're adding a dynamic twist. So hit down, rise up. So Amy, you can go back to seated, right? Right? Open, take your arm behind you. So this arm matters because if you don't stay on balance, you're not gonna twist, you're gonna do violence, right? The violent zone, as Dennis said. So inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve, but make sure you're staying connected to your midline. Lift under the collarbones, open. The twisting energy adds energy, and then come on back. It doesn't just take energy. It spreads the sprinkler of your spine, right? Other arm up, over, around. So I'm opening up again, right? I'm inhale, lifting up. I'm exhale, revolving. Lift under the collarbones, roll the shoulders back, turn your head if you want to. And then come on back to center. Come forward again. Lengthen your spine. So there's a dynamic rising, right? So you're going to come forward and then lift under your collarbones and change the energy in your spine. So, and then fall back again and come forward, transform, lift your chest, broaden, reach for the sun with the center of your chest. And then release. This time, make sure you stay connected to the earth, down, lift, reach up, earth to sun, right? Good. And then release. This time, go back. So I'm going to push on my thighs. Instead of like forcing myself up, I'm going to fall open. Right, so I'm going to go up and over the back of my chair, making sure I keep earth in my legs. Lengthen, open, integrate with the space around you from the center of your chest. Keep your legs in order to do that well. Good, and then release. And then gently just take your right arm outside your left leg and do a gentle little twist here. And then do it the other way. Again, gentle twist here. And then come back to center. Feel the hum. Can you quiet down on a dime? This is a life skill. So I can feel all the places my body was and all the hum of it. But I want to be able, no matter what the chaos and the effort is on the outside, I want to be able to access the hum. It's a life skill. It's the most important way that you kiss your asana, is you never lose track of the hum, the source of your resilience, the thing that precedes your movements, the part of you that precedes your disability, precedes your losses. It's not an idea. It's an experience. It includes your body. This is the place that Jane visits when she's on the floor. This is the place that Dennis visits when he sees the sun and shadows on the snow. This is the place where Angelique sees propose. She sees more rather than less. We're stronger when we're more. And we're stronger together. Soften your temples, the jaw, the inside of your mouth. There's a place of your own resilience and shared resilience. Always. Both. So easy to lose track. So easy to find. Feel your breath into each nostril, into each lung, each sitting bone, each foot. No matter what you think, you are already whole. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. If you closed your eyes, you get to let in the light now by your choice. The light is always a choice, right? So open your eyes and let the light in. Greet the world again. Smile, because you're part of it. You always were. This isn't a thought. It's the truth. When you're ready, come back. Bring your hands in a prayer if you can. Put your hands on your chest if you can. Right? Namaste. The spirit in me bows to the spirit in you. So we're a remarkable community, and we want everyone on the call to join, to learn from each other. We're building a community of embodiment in a virtual world. It's strange. It's powerful. It matters. It's inspiring for all the right reasons, not the not correct reasons that are projected on trauma, loss, and disability. It matters. So join Kiss My Asana this week. There's going to be all sorts of things going on. There's going to be, different challenges going on. You can see a whole bunch of stuff. Remember to click on your QR code. I don't even know what that means, but I'm going to believe I know what that means. Or go on the YouTube, go on our website. We're so grateful for everyone that participates. I want to thank Jane and Dennis and Angelique and Rodrigo and Amy for being willing to share your homes. It's not easy. All right. And everybody, kiss your asana this week. Share it with the world. Until we meet again, wherever we do, be well and kiss your asana.